So, welcome to part 3 of my life story. If you want to watch the other parts, feel free to watch them before watching this. You can even just watch this one if you want. But we're going to talk about junior year. Junior year was tough. Um, about 2 weeks before my 18th birthday, my dad tried to kick me out early. And that's because, like I told you in the past video, I was having a really hard time. I was doing some things I shouldn't be doing. And I don't mean like drugs or alcohol or anything like that. I wasn't that kind of girl. But I was hurting people. And but that's I'm not trying to blame my actions on anything, but keep in mind that I didn't know my autism very well back then. I knew I had Asperger's syndrome, but I didn't know what I could do to help myself. I didn't know myself well as I know myself now. Keep in mind, I'm 26 now, and back then I was almost 18. My dad had enough of me. He was done. He was sick and tired of it, and he was just done. So I ended up staying the night with some friends that night, but I didn't expect for something to happen a month later. So a month later, in October, I was struggling. I had a great day at school up until the final period. Some guys thought it would be funny to write this fake love letter to me, and it made me cry because it wasn't the first time that happened to me. Keep in mind, up until high school, I've been bullied in every school I went to. Not physically bullied, that's assault. If you're getting physically bullied, that's against the law, and that's assault, and seek help. You need to get out of that situation. That's bad. And mental bullying is bad too. Being called names is bad too. But look for help. But, so, what was I saying? So, I was wrecked, and I went home, and I realized I couldn't call my mom right away because she was busy with work. So I waited and I waited, and I tried to call my mom. She wouldn't pick up, so I start calling my dad, and my sisters walk in. And we got into an argument, and it was pretty bad. And I tried to find out another way to call my dad, because all I wanted to do was go to the library and get out of the situation, because my mind is just full of this one situation that happened. These guys hurt my feelings, and I just needed a way to get out. I didn't want to be at home because it didn't feel safe to me at that moment. Well, somebody got to the phone first, and my dad was not happy with me. He wanted me to stay in the house, and I could not do that. That was not the option for me at the time. It was the last thing I wanted was stay at home. So instead of going to the library, I went to the police station. And I tried to get some help, but they weren't there yet. So I waited. Then one of my friends suggested, "Hey, ring the doorbell again." So I did. Sad thing is, it wasn't a police officer I worked with before. It was some new one that never heard my story, didn't know me. So their reaction was, "Did you hurt anybody?" And I was like, "I hope not." And they're like, "Well, what can I do for you other than this?" So we tried calling my mom and she wouldn't pick up. But on the way out at the police station, my mom was driving by, and now that time has passed, that that I probably shouldn't have done this. This is probably the reason why um I ended up getting kicked out in the first place. But I begged my mom to take me to the library because I needed an escape. I was done. I was tired. I just wanted to tell somebody who would listen to me that I was in pain. So I went to the library and I was able to talk to one of my friends at the time on the computer because was playing this game and I had family in this game. Well, family to me, not blood relation, but they became really close family, and I still talk to them to this day. Like, they're really close to me now, like amazingly close. My mom was supposed to pick me up at 7. 7 rolled around and she wasn't there. I walked home in the dark, and I got to the door, and the door was locked. And I was met by my mom, and all I could think was, I'm not going home tonight. I'm not going to be allowed in tonight. So I ended up going over to the neighbor's house and waiting. Let's just say I was not allowed home that night. So I went to a local restaurant that I always went to and used their phone because I didn't have a cell phone back then. I didn't have a cell phone until I moved out completely, like until I moved to Washington State. So so what was I saying? I went to a restaurant, used their phone, was able to get a ride that was like 30 minutes away out of the town so nobody could find me. And I stayed with some friends in a safe place. And they helped me calm down. I was hoping that I wasn't being kicked out and that I had a chance because this was a Thursday. So I was hoping I had a chance to go home. So on Friday, I went to school. I talked to one of my friends, asked if I could stay at her house if things didn't work out. She said sure. She got a hold of her mom, and I had a plan. I did the whole school day, went home, and let's just say I wasn't allowed back. The rest of the weekend was me spending time at my friend's house, trying to figure out my next steps, trying to figure out if I was going to be okay. Keep in mind that Friday, I also ended up talking with my teachers and telling them what was going on. It was the worst, best thing that happened to me. Because of this experience, I learned that I am more capable of doing things and living my life than I ever thought before. I am a strong, independent woman in my own right. Yeah, I need lots of help. I need lots of support. but I'm strong and I can do it. So, for after that, I spent months jumping house to house. Um, first 4 months, first month, I stayed at one house and was there for a month, and then for the rest of the time when I was out in Wisconsin, I was jumping from house to house. I went to one church the whole time because on the weekends I went to I was staying at a house, different houses that everybody went to the same church because they were part of my my work. By the way, I was not allowed to work. I lost my job the moment I told them that uh, that about my dad. They told me I couldn't work until me and my dad made up. And a lot of other stuff happened during that time. And again, that's not my story to share. That's other people's stories to share, um, because they had some experiences based off of some of the experiences I had, and I rather not share that publicly. That is their story. So, um, I ended up. Now, keep in mind, I'm still working, even to this day. I'm still working on my faith. I'm still working on my faith, my walk in Christ. Um, but I had a girlfriend, and I, she was one of the girls I stayed at at their house with, and I won't say any more than that. I dated her until a little after I moved to Washington State, and I broke up with her after that. But I was, so during my time jumping place to place, everybody in my school, everybody knew about what was going on. And the staff were nothing but loving. Um, and they were trying to help me figure out what to do next. Well, I didn't feel like I was capable enough to live on my own. I still don't feel like I'm capable enough to live on my own completely. I feel like I'll always need some extra help. Always. But I do feel like I can do a lot more than I used to think I could do. Like, there's a lot I can do. But I do struggle and I do need assistance. But so an option popped up in December of 2013. And that was I had an amazing aunt who lived in Washington State. And she invited me to come stay with her as long as I would get a job. I stayed in school and I found a way out there. And by golly, I found a way out there. I was out there. I stayed with her from 2013 to 2015. I went through 27 applications for a job, got 2 interviews, and no job. So we created a job for me. I became my aunt's caregiver. I will not go into more detail about what was going on with her. I would tell you it's her story to share, but um you guys already know what happened, but I will explain it in a second. So, when I was with her, I was in a school called Curtis, and I ended up switching to online school through their school because they were high level, and I couldn't keep up. So we switched me on to online school to help me still graduate, but do it in a way I could do it for myself. And while that was happening in 2015, um, something happened during 2014. I ended up going to the hospital because I ended up having a mass in my ovary. Um, But in 2015, in March of 2015, this was like the fifth or sixth time no, there's so many times that the fire department had to show up to help my aunt out, but this time it was like the third time that they had to take her to the hospital, and this was finally the emergency room doctor was listening to us and got her admitted. Let's just say that week was the hardest week of my life. I we the next day after, like, we were up all day that Sunday. We didn't get any sleep that night because we ended up going to the hospital. And then Monday, I finally got to go home like at 5 p.m. And I had 4 cats on home, okay? And I had to feed them and make sure they were going to do okay. And I go home, take care of the cats. Her caregiver that could drive drove me home. And I get a call from her basically saying that she was going to move rooms. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, I go to school. I go to my advocate meeting because I was part of a in school, like, online school program through Curtis. And I go to the hospital, and they didn't switch her to just any place. They switched her to the they switched her to the ICU. When I saw her, my heart sunk so quickly. She responded still, even though she had tubes and everything in her. She responded to everything. I was reading her The Shack during that time. I would go there every day and just read to her. I had to let my grandparents know what was going on. And then St. Patrick's Day hit. And they made the choice. You guys, I know where my Aunt Kathy is right now, and she's in heaven. I don't care what anybody else says about her. She's in heaven. I miss her so much. I know she's looking out for me. I know that she's been a guardian angel just for me. And that God sent one down. She was my guardian angel. I know I said my sister was what she is, but she was what I needed at that time. I will forever miss her. Until I go back, until I go home, I'm gonna miss her. Until I can get up there and hug her and tell her I love her. So, after she passed away, she had paid the rent and everything for the apartment. So, I had a month to get new homes for the cats, find a place to go, and to basically get rid of everything I had and rehouse everything. I had some help from school, but my grandparents couldn't help much. They were really busy and they lived in another state, so they couldn't help much. But so So after that, I ended up in one host home for a couple months. Then I went to, and during that time, near the end of that time, the mass came back and pain happened again. And this time we had a solution. I was able to get it removed at my next host home. So I went to two different host homes. I was still in school, still trying to graduate high school. Had some not so good friends, except for one who is now like a really good friend of mine. I still talk to him. I think he's amazing. Like, he's a cool guy. but so I was doing that, and then I ended up in a homeless shelter. Still in high school, trying to graduate. I was there for a month, no, 2 months and 12 days. And those 12 days were tough because I was on something called cot call. And you can only be on cot call for 7 days, 1 week. But I was on cot call for 12 days because they were trying to get a hold of the director to talk to me. And so cot call basically meant that, like it sounds, you called in to get a cot, set it up at the shelter in the living, like the huge communal space in the dining area, and you had to be there at 4:30 p.m. and you had to leave before 8 a.m. And I would trek up this giant hill to this shelter when I would come back with 2 suitcases in a backpack and my laptop because I was in school. So I would trek up this hill and I would make sure I got up that hill. And one time, this guy one time. So I'm sure I could have been in a dangerous situation with this guy, but I think I did it the best way I could. And that was, this guy drives by with his friend, and he drops his friend off, and then he comes back to me because I carry my stuff. And he's, hey, you want to ride? I'm like, no, thank you, but can you take my stuff? Yeah, I asked him to take my stuff, and he was like, sure, I'll take your stuff. So I got him to drive my stuff up to the shelter. And the cool thing about the shelter is there's cameras everywhere. So I got him to take my stuff up to the shelter. I got all my stuff and went in. I said, thanks. He's like, no problem, anytime. Yeah. So that happened. I'm glad it was safe, though. And then what happened after that? Oh, yeah. So then, so I was there for 2 months and 12 days. And then one day, something amazing happened. And we're going to get into that in part 4. So I'll see you guys in part 4. I love you guys, and I'll see you real soon.